The sharp crack of wood against plaster silenced the music. "You think you can just replace me?" The white chapel doors, once closed in anticipation of a bride's graceful entrance, now hung awkwardly from their hinges. The faces of 200 guests turned in unison as the figure in black stood framed in sunlight, her hand steady, revealing the cold metal of a pistol. Just moments earlier, Deputy Alex Cortez had stood at the altar, his fingers intertwined with Clara's. The gentle Florida breeze carried the scent of jasmine through open windows, dancing between rows of white chairs filled with friends, family, and fellow officers from the Tampa Bay Sheriff's Department. "You look beautiful," Alex had whispered to Clara, his voice catching slightly. Her cream gown complemented the flush in her cheeks as she squeezed his hand in response. The officiant cleared his throat. "Dearly beloved." Those were the last peaceful words spoken before chaos claimed the day. The guests' gasps formed a chorus of horror as Lydia Santos, ex-wife, forgotten lover, unwanted guest, aimed her weapon at the couple who had dared to find happiness without her. "You ruined me," she screamed, her finger tightening around the trigger. 1 second separated joy from terror. 1 bullet separated a wedding from a tragedy. One woman's broken heart transformed what should have been a celebration of love into a scene that would haunt the Tampa Bay community for years to come. Welcome back to Altar of Secrets, where wedding bells sometimes ring with warning instead of joy. Whether you're a loyal supporter or joining us for the first time today, we're grateful you're here. Thank you. On this channel, we transform shocking true events into dramatic narratives that highlight the red flags many miss until it's too late. Our stories aren't merely about crimes, they explore the complex emotions and decisions that preceded them. Today's case takes us to Tampa Bay, where a deputy's dream wedding became a nightmare in seconds. The moment an ex-wife appeared at those chapel doors, everything changed, not just for the couple, but for everyone who witnessed what followed. If you're new to our community, this is the best time to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. We upload fresh content regularly, each case offering new insights into human nature and relationships, so don't miss our. Show your support with a like if you're already wondering what drove this woman to such desperate measures. Tell us in the comments which country you're watching from. Our global audience brings unique perspectives to each story. Now, let's return to that fateful day in Tampa, where the sun shone bright on a celebration about to shatter. Deputy Alex Cortez wasn't just respected within the Tampa Bay Sheriff's Department, he was admired. At 34, his career had already spanned 12 years of dedicated service. His colleagues described him as methodical, fair, and uncommonly kind for someone who witnessed humanity at its worst daily. "Alex was the guy you wanted responding to your emergency," said Captain James Rivera. "He had this way of making people feel safe, even in their darkest moments." Born to Cuban immigrants who settled in Florida in the 1980s, Alex grew up understanding the value of community. His father worked construction while his mother taught elementary school. They instilled in him a deep sense of responsibility that eventually led him to law enforcement. By all accounts, Alex excelled in his role. 3 commendations for bravery decorated his record, including one for rescuing a family from a house fire while off duty. Yet despite his professional success, his personal life had weathered significant storms. Then came the Donovan case, a high-profile fraud investigation that brought Assistant District Attorney Clara Brooks into his orbit. Their first meeting was hardly romantic. They disagreed about evidence collection procedures during a tense briefing. "I thought he was stubborn," Clara later told friends. "He thought I was difficult. We were both right." What began as professional friction evolved into mutual respect over the 6-month investigation. Late nights reviewing evidence turned into coffee breaks, which eventually became dinner dates once the case concluded with a conviction. Clara, with her sharp intellect and quiet confidence, balanced Alex perfectly. Where he was cautious, she was bold. When she overthought, he simplified. Their relationship progressed steadily despite demanding careers. They complemented each other, noted fellow prosecutor Miguel Sanchez. You could see how they made each other better, both personally and professionally. 3 years after meeting, Alex proposed during a weekend trip to the Keys, Clara said yes without hesitation. They set their wedding date for May 15th, a Saturday with perfect weather forecasts and the promise of new beginnings. The couple faced typical pre-wedding challenges: venue changes, guest list debates, and family opinions about everything from music to menu choices. Yet they navigated these obstacles together, strengthening their bond. "We've handled murderers and con artists," Clara joked at their rehearsal dinner. Wedding planning is nothing compared to that. Little did they know that the greatest threat to their happiness wasn't a criminal they'd prosecuted or an administrative hurdle. It was someone from Alex's past, someone who refused to remain there, someone who believed she still had a claim on the groom's future. Lydia Santos sat alone in her apartment, staring at the cream envelope that had arrived that morning. The return address showed a Tampa printing company, but she recognized the handwriting that had added her address. Alex's handwriting. 5 years earlier, Lydia and Alex had seemed like the perfect match. They met at a charity fundraiser for the police department. She, a passionate social worker, he, a rising star in law enforcement. Their courtship was swift, intense, and by all appearances, genuine. "When Alex loved you, you felt it completely," Lydia's sister Maria would later tell investigators. "He gave everything to their relationship." Their wedding was small but joyful. For 2 years, they built what looked like a solid marriage. They bought a modest house in a good neighborhood. They discussed children. They hosted barbecues for friends and colleagues. But beneath the surface, tensions grew. Alex's unpredictable schedule created distance. Lydia's increasing desire for children clashed with Alex's hesitation. Arguments became more frequent, reconciliations less satisfying. Then came the pregnancy, unplanned but initially welcomed by both. For a brief moment, it seemed to heal their wounded relationship. Alex painted the spare bedroom. Lydia collected tiny clothes. They chose names. At 16 weeks, Lydia miscarried. She changed after that, recalled her former coworker Jen Ramirez. The light inside her dimmed. She became fixated on what she'd lost, both the baby and, increasingly, Alex. The grief drove them apart instead of bringing them together. 6 months later, Alex moved out. The divorce was finalized quickly, with minimal assets to divide and no children to consider. While Alex rebuilt his life, Lydia remained frozen in her pain. She switched jobs twice. She moved to a smaller apartment. She began tracking Alex's life through social media and mutual acquaintances. "It wasn't healthy," Maria admitted. "I tried to get her into therapy, but she insisted she was fine. She kept saying Alex would realize his mistake." When news of his engagement reached her, Lydia's behavior shifted from private obsession to active monitoring. She drove past his apartment. She researched Clara online. She created fake profiles to view wedding planning updates. The invitation, likely sent as a courtesy or peace offering, became the catalyst. Lydia interpreted it as either cruel mockery or a subconscious cry for help from Alex. "He wouldn't have sent it if he didn't want me there," she told her sister the week before the wedding. "Deep down, he knows marrying her is wrong." On the morning of May 15th, Lydia woke early. She applied makeup carefully. She selected a black dress, not for mourning, she told herself, but because it made her look powerful. Last, she retrieved the small pistol she'd purchased 3 months earlier for protection. As she drove toward the chapel, Lydia wasn't thinking about consequences. She wasn't considering legal ramifications or public reaction. She was focused solely on one thought: stopping what she viewed as a terrible mistake, a mistake only she could correct. The morning of May 15th unfolded in 2 vastly different worlds. At the Bayshore Hotel, Clara woke to sunshine streaming through floor-length curtains. Her 3 bridesmaids arrived with coffee and pastries, their excitement filling the suite with laughter. The makeup artist arranged her tools while the photographer captured candid moments of Clara reading Alex's handwritten note. "I can't wait to see you walk toward me," he had written. "Today marks the beginning of our best chapter." Clara's mother fastened the delicate buttons running down her daughter's gown, pausing occasionally to wipe away tears. The ivory dress, with its subtle lace overlay, transformed the pragmatic prosecutor into a vision of romantic elegance. "You look absolutely perfect," her mother whispered, adjusting the veil one final time. Across town, Alex and his groomsmen gathered at his best friend's house. They joked about his nervous energy as he checked his watch repeatedly. "The ceremony doesn't start for 3 hours," his brother Miguel laughed, straightening Alex's tie. "The chapel isn't going anywhere." The White Chapel on Tampa Bay had been Clara's dream venue since childhood. Its large windows overlooked the water, filling the space with natural light. White roses and baby's breath adorned each pew. A string quartet practiced in the corner. Meanwhile, in her small apartment 15 miles away, Lydia applied a final coat of mascara, her movements mechanical. The gun sat on her bathroom counter, incongruent against the pastel tiles. She rehearsed what she would say when she saw Alex, the words changing with each repetition. As noon approached, guests began arriving at the chapel. They signed the guest book and admired the tasteful decorations. Several of Alex's fellow deputies attended in uniform, a show of respect for their colleague. The wedding planner directed the final arrangements, unaware that an uninvited guest was parking her car just beyond the property line. 200 people waited for a ceremony of joy. One person prepared for an act of destruction. The clock ticked toward 1 p.m., the scheduled beginning of a marriage and the imminent end of peace. Have you ever witnessed someone reach their breaking point? That moment when rational thought surrenders to raw emotion? As our story approaches its climax, I want you to consider, what pushes a person beyond the boundaries of acceptable behavior? For Lydia, was it the loss of her child, the dissolution of her marriage, or perhaps the wedding invitation itself, that cream-colored reminder that life had continued without her? Take a moment to hit that like button if you've ever seen warning signs in someone's behavior, but didn't recognize their significance until too late. In the comments below, share what you believe drives someone to transform pain into violence. Is it a momentary impulse or a calculated decision? As we return to Tampa Bay, the chapel bells have begun to ring. Alex stands at the altar, unaware that his past is about to collide violently with his future. Clara waits in a side room for her cue to walk down the aisle. And Lydia? Lydia has just stepped out of her car, her hand resting on the weapon hidden beneath her coat. The string quartet transitioned to Pachelbel's canon. Guests rose from their seats, turning expectantly toward the chapel entrance where Clara would soon appear. Alex stood tall at the altar, his best man beside him, both men smiling with anticipation. Outside, the wedding coordinator gave final instructions to the flower girl and ring bearer. She checked her watch, 1:05 p.m., right on schedule. What no one noticed was Lydia slipping through the side garden, bypassing the main entrance. She paused behind a large magnolia tree, watching the scene unfold through the chapel's open windows. Her heart pounded against her ribs as she observed Alex, handsome in his tailored suit, waiting for another woman. The music swelled. The flower girl began her careful procession, dropping rose petals along the white runner. Bridesmaids followed in matching blue gowns. Then came the moment everyone awaited. Clara appeared in the doorway, her father beside her, radiant in white. She took 3 steps down the aisle. That's when Lydia made her move. Instead of entering through the main doors, she circled to the side entrance, the one reserved for staff and vendors. With a forceful push, she flung the door open. The bang echoed through the chapel, causing heads to turn in confusion. "Stop this right now!" Lydia's voice cut through the music, which stuttered to silence. 200 faces registered shock as she marched down the side aisle toward the altar. Her black dress contrasted sharply against the pastel decorations, her presence an unwelcome shadow across the celebration. "Lydia?" Alex's voice betrayed his disbelief. "What are you doing here?" Clara froze mid-step, her bouquet clutched tightly against her bodice. Her father instinctively moved in front of her. "You think you can just replace me?" Lydia's voice rose with each word. "You think you can just walk away from everything we built together?" Several guests stood, uncertain how to respond. Among them were 5 off-duty deputies who recognized the escalating danger in Lydia's posture. "This isn't the place," Alex said, his tone measured despite his racing pulse. "Please, let's talk outside." "Now you want to talk?" Lydia laughed, the sound hollow and wrong. 3 years of silence, and now you want to talk? Her hand disappeared into her coat pocket. When it reappeared, she held the pistol. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone screamed. The photographer's camera clicked rapidly, capturing the moment in stark detail. "Everyone stay calm," Alex said, his training taking over as he raised his hands. Lydia, think about what you're doing. I've thought about nothing else for months, she replied, her aim shifting between Alex and Clara. You ruined my life. You left me when I needed you most. Clara's father pulled her backward toward the exit. Lydia noticed the movement and swung the gun toward them. Don't move, she shouted. Nobody leaves. That's when Deputy Miguel Rodriguez, Alex's cousin and groomsman, began inching along the wall toward Lydia's position. Another officer, seated in the third row, slowly reached for his concealed weapon. Our baby died, and you just walked away, Lydia continued, tears now streaming down her face. You started over like we never existed. I grieved too, Alex responded, taking a careful step forward. We both suffered, Lydia. Not the same, she whispered, her finger tightening on the trigger. Not even close. The gun fired. The bullet struck the wooden podium, sending splinters flying. Chaos erupted instantly. Guests dove for cover, overturning chairs and scrambling toward exits. The string quartet abandoned their instruments. The flower girl's mother scooped her daughter into protective arms. In that moment of confusion, deputies Rodriguez and Hernandez seized their opportunity. They rushed Lydia from opposite directions, tackling her to the ground before she could fire again. The gun skidded across the polished floor, stopping at the feet of an elderly guest who stared down in horror. Secure the weapon, Rodriguez shouted as he pinned Lydia's arms behind her back. Outside, sirens wailed. Someone had called 911 the moment Lydia appeared. Tampa PD officers arrived within minutes, rushing into the chapel with weapons drawn, only to find their colleagues had already contained the threat. Clara sat on the steps leading to the altar, her white dress pooled around her, makeup streaked with tears. Her mother held her shoulders while her father spoke urgently with police. The pristine gown, which had taken 6 months to perfect, now bore a smudge of dirt from the floor where she'd fallen during the commotion. Alex stood nearby, his face ashen as he watched officers handcuff his ex-wife. The woman he had once loved, once built dreams with, now sobbed as she was led away, her mascara creating dark rivers down her cheeks. I just wanted you to feel it, Lydia kept repeating. I wanted you to know how it feels when everything falls apart. The wedding guests huddled in small groups outside the chapel, recounting what they'd witnessed, voices shaking with adrenaline. Camera phones had captured everything, videos that would soon circulate through news outlets and social media, transforming a private tragedy into public spectacle. Pastor Williams, who had been prepared to unite Alex and Clara in marriage, instead found himself counseling traumatized attendees. In 30 years of ministry, he later told reporters, I've never seen such a display of hatred interrupt what should have been sacred. By evening, the chapel stood empty, except for crime scene technicians collecting evidence. Yellow police tape surrounded the building, fluttering in the same gentle breeze that was supposed to carry rose petals and blessings. At the Tampa Bay Sheriff's Department, Lydia sat in an interview room, now calm as she provided her statement. I didn't plan to shoot anyone, she insisted. I just wanted to stop the wedding. Meanwhile, in a hotel suite meant for their first night as husband and wife, Alex and Clara sat in silence, still in their wedding clothes, trying to process how their perfect day had shattered so completely. The cake remained uncut. The first dance never happened. The vows were left unspoken. The legal system processed Lydia Santos with efficient precision. Charged with attempted assault with a deadly weapon, criminal threatening, and disrupting a public gathering, she faced up to 15 years in prison. The prosecutor, ironically a colleague of Clara's, pushed for maximum penalties. The defendant showed premeditation. Assistant DA Richard Kwan argued during the arraignment. She purchased a firearm 3 months prior, researched the wedding details, and deliberately bypassed security measures to access the ceremony. The judge denied bail, citing Lydia as both a flight risk and danger to the victims. She was remanded to county custody pending trial. Investigation revealed disturbing patterns in Lydia's recent behavior. Her internet search history showed hundreds of queries about Alex and Clara. She had driven past their apartment 27 times in the month before the wedding. A journal found in her bedroom contained increasingly hostile entries about the couple. I watch them through windows sometimes, one entry read. They laugh like they deserve happiness. They don't. Mental health professionals conducted evaluations, diagnosing Lydia with complicated grief disorder and obsessive attachment patterns. Her attorney built a defense around diminished capacity, arguing that the miscarriage and subsequent divorce had triggered a psychological break. "My client was not in her right mind," defense attorney Marissa Patel told reporters. "She needs treatment, not incarceration." The case never went to trial. 4 months after the incident, Lydia accepted a plea agreement. 5 years in state prison followed by mandatory psychiatric treatment and a permanent restraining order protecting both Alex and Clara. During her sentencing hearing, Lydia spoke directly to the couple, who sat stoically in the courtroom's front row. "I convinced myself that stopping your wedding would somehow fix what broke inside me," she said, her voice steady. "I was wrong. Nothing will bring back what we lost. Not our baby, not our marriage, not the person I used to be." The judge's gavel fell, closing this chapter of the story, but leaving all parties forever changed by what had transpired on what should have been a day of celebration. Dr. Rebecca Winters, clinical psychologist specializing in relationship trauma, reviewed Lydia's case extensively for this report. Her analysis offers insight into the psychological factors that transformed a once loving wife into someone capable of such a public act of aggression. "What we see here is a perfect storm of emotional triggers," Dr. Winters explains. "The loss of a pregnancy represents profound grief, not just for the child, but for the future that child represented. When this loss coincided with marital dissolution, Lydia experienced compound trauma. According to Dr. Winters, Lydia's inability to process these consecutive losses created a dangerous fixation. Rather than moving through grief toward acceptance, she became stuck in denial and anger. The wedding invitation, likely sent as a gesture of goodwill, became the match that lit years of accumulated emotional fuel." The timeline reveals critical warning signs that went unaddressed. Lydia's social withdrawal after the divorce, her job instability, and her increasing focus on Alex's new relationship all indicated deteriorating mental health. Friends reported she spoke about Alex in present tense, as if they were still married, notes Dr. Winters. This linguistic pattern often signals denial of reality. The purchase of a firearm marked a significant escalation. When someone experiencing emotional distress acquires a weapon, it represents a shift from passive to active coping, a dangerous transition that demands immediate intervention. What makes this case particularly noteworthy is how Lydia maintained a functional facade. She continued working, paid her bills on time, and appeared composed to casual acquaintances. This high-functioning presentation often prevents proper intervention. "People expect mental health crises to look obvious," Dr. Winters says. "In reality, someone can be planning destructive acts while appearing completely normal to outside observers." For those concerned about similar situations, Dr. Winters recommends watching for these key indicators. Persistent focus on past relationships, inability to acknowledge relationship endings, statements suggesting ownership of an ex-partner, monitoring behaviors, driving by homes, excessive social media checking, expressions of feeling replaced or erased, any mention of wanting to stop or prevent an ex's new relationship. 1 year after the chapel incident, Alex and Clara finally exchanged vows, this time in a private ceremony with enhanced security and a carefully vetted guest list. Their journey offers powerful lessons about resilience and the importance of addressing emotional wounds before they fester into violence. "We considered canceling altogether," Clara admitted in a rare interview, "but we realized that would mean letting fear win. We refused to let one moment of chaos define our entire future." This case highlights several crucial takeaways for anyone navigating relationship transitions. First, grief requires proper processing. Lydia's unresolved pain from her miscarriage and divorce created a dangerous emotional pressure cooker. Professional support during such losses isn't optional, it's essential. Second, boundaries matter. The wedding invitation, while perhaps well-intentioned, crossed into territory that reopened wounds. Clear separation often proves kinder than attempted friendship when deep emotional attachments remain. Third, take threats and obsessive behaviors seriously. Lydia's repeated drive-bys and online stalking weren't merely annoying, they were warning flares of escalating fixation. Fourth, support systems save lives. Lydia's isolation allowed her distorted thinking to go unchallenged. Strong community connections provide reality checks when perspective blurs. Finally, recovery is possible even after traumatic events. Both Alex and Clara sought therapy to process what happened. They've since established a foundation helping couples affected by relationship violence. What happened that day was terrible, Alex reflected. But it taught us something valuable. Healing isn't optional. It's the foundation everything else builds upon. The chapel in Tampa Bay still stands, its white walls repainted, its doors replaced. Weddings continue there every weekend, though staff now implement security protocols they never imagined necessary before. What signs did you notice throughout this story that might have prevented this tragedy? Would you recognize similar warning behaviors in someone you know? If this case resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might benefit from these lessons. Your simple click helps those who need these warnings most to see this video. Subscribe to Altar of Secrets for more true crime stories that expose the hidden dangers lurking within relationships. Turn on notifications to catch our uploads. Do well to check other amazing stories on our playlist. In the comments below, tell us, what would you have done differently if you were in Alex's position? Or if Lydia was your friend, how might you have intervened? Until next time, remember that closure isn't given. It's claimed through the courage to face what hurts us and the wisdom to release what no longer serves us. Stay safe, stay aware, and thank you for joining us today. See you on another story from the Altar of Secrets. Bye for now.